talk a little bit about Morgan Stanley, and I think the thing that stood out to me with Morgan Stanley really was the Eaton Vance acquisition they announced. I mean, that was a pretty big deal. It's gonna bring a good chunk of change under their umbrella in regard to assets under management, and give them a little bit more of an ESG presence, which I think is very forward thinking. But what stood out to you from Morgan Stanley's core?
It's interesting that Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley are the two biggest investment banks in the country, and they're really going two different directions when it comes to bringing their brands to the masses.
Yeah,
Goldman's doing the commercial thing with Marcus and the Apple Card, things like that, whereas Morgan Stanley is pushing into the brokerage space on the
yep,
retail level.
yeah.
They just finalized the acquisition of E-Trade. They're buying out Eaton Vance, the asset manager. What really stood out to me, I mentioned equity underwriting when we were talking about Goldman, how
Hmm.
IPOs have just kind of been off the chart. Morgan Stanley's equity underwriting revenue more than doubled from the same quarter a year ago.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive. It just kind of indicates just how active, I guess you'd say, the IPO market has been this year. Trading revenue was strong, up 20% year over year. They earned more than the market had expected. The revenues were up 16% year over year. So the kind of key takeaway I had from Morgan Stanley is that they had a very strong quarter. They weren't quite what Goldman was in terms of just kind of a blowout record-setting quarter, but that's just because some of their business works a little bit differently, especially on the investment side. Goldman has a big portfolio of investments, and Morgan Stanley relies a little bit less on things like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I couldn't find that much I didn't like in Morgan Stanley's report.
Yeah. Yep. It seems like consolidation is certainly going to be a big theme of their strategy going forward, at least in the near term. I mean, that Eaton Vance acquisition, they saw as essentially inevitable. If they didn't do it, someone else would, and I'd imagine they're already looking around to see what else they might be able to bring into their into their universe as well.